Functional Communication Training, presented by our team of professionals, Jenna Egan, Karen Connaught, Natalie Roman, Sandra Romano, Maggie Tice, and Chelsea Williams. Welcome to today's in-service discussing functional communication training and how it can be used at Ellison Preschool to help all students become better social communicators. Thank you for jumping into this collaborative process as we set the stage to help students make not only significant academic achievements, but also significant social achievements that will support their growth throughout their education. Ellison Preschool has a dedicated and effective staff who come from a variety of disciplines and backgrounds. The staff includes the principal, the board-certified behavior analyst, 20 teachers, 40 teaching assistants, 2 speech and language therapists, an occupational therapist, physical therapist, parent and community, and volunteers. The staff teach and support an equally diverse student population. The Ellison student body includes 200 students. There's 50 regular education students, and there's 150 special education students. 50 of the students are receiving speech-language pathology services. 25 of them are currently nonverbal, 5 are using picture communication, and 20 have no current communication system. Staff members at Ellison work together to meet the individualized educational needs of each student in the school, which is challenging in itself. During today's in-service, we are going to discuss an intervention that will help this diverse student body communicate effectively, regardless of their current verbal abilities. After meeting with the Ellison staff to discuss concerns and observing the students, the behavior that was identified as a target for change was student conflict during play. The behaviors observed included taking toys from one another, pushing, hitting, and tantrums that include crying, screaming, and laying on the floor. These behaviors interrupt the growth and development of social relationships as well as learning opportunities for the students. Staff members express their desire for students to share toys, take turns, and ask for what they want instead of taking things. How can we change this challenging behavior? An evidence-based intervention called Functional Communication Training, or FCT, will be used by staff to teach students a more socially acceptable way to get their needs and wants met. All behavior, both adaptive and maladaptive, is a form of communication. The goal of FCT is to create communication responses that allow students to get their needs and wants met in a socially acceptable and recognizable way. Behaviors serve a function, typically to gain access to attention, items or activities, to escape or avoid aversive or undesired setting or task, or to fulfill a sensory need. When students are not able to communicate in a way that others understand, challenging behaviors can serve the same function. In this case, students may not have developed the verbal skills necessary to gain access to preferred toys or activities and are using maladaptive behavior. By teaching functional communication, we can help increase appropriate play behaviors and decrease challenging behaviors like fighting. What is functional communication training? FCT is defined as a systematic intervention in which the behavior of concern is replaced by more socially appropriate behavior. Replacement behavior is intended to serve the same purpose as the challenging behavior. Underlying notion that challenging behaviors are communicative and intense. Overall, FCT is an intervention that helps to teach individuals alternative responses or replacement behaviors that will result in the same reinforcement that they were receiving when they were exhibiting the problem or undesired behavior. How will functional communication help all students at Ellison? Functional communication is a useful technique to introduce to the Ellison School because it is a technique that is important for all students to learn appropriate behaviors when interacting with one another. Learning appropriate communication skills is the beginning foundation for a child to be successful in expressing their wants and needs. and with the techniques used for FCT, many of the children at Ellison will increase their ways to express their needs and decrease any interfering behavior that is occurring as a result of lack of appropriate communication skills. Implementing FCT will increase the appropriate play skill communication among all students. By increasing appropriate play skills, it will also result in the children learning how to communicate with one another and learning how to solve conflicts when they arise with each other. FCT will also decrease the amount of children fighting over toys, which will result in successful playtime. When the students learn replacement responses and appropriate replacement behaviors when playing with toys, this ultimately will decrease the amount of tantrums that occur on a daily basis. As we mentioned earlier, functional communication training is an evidence-based intervention with peer-reviewed research supporting its effectiveness. FCT was first examined in the seminal article by Carr and Duran in 1985 entitled Reducing Problem Behaviors Through Functional Communication Training. Studies have examined the use of FCT with individuals who have been diagnosed with a developmental disability, traumatic brain injury, attention deficit disorder, and speech or language delays. Although FCT has the greatest level of empirical support for use with individuals with developmental disabilities, there is emerging evidence that FCT is effective for other individuals who display problem behavior. Currently, the use of FCT is being used in more non-clinical settings and in more natural environments to teach social communication skills and decrease problem behaviors.
Welcome to the How-To series. This How-To presents an introduction to teaching functional communication to early childhood learners. Some of the children you will see will not have a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorders. However, the examples all depict strategies and teaching practices that can benefit all students. Functional communication is a very important skill for preschool students, and it is critical that all individuals have some form of communication. Communication is a fundamental part of what makes us human. We communicate verbally, non-verbally, in written text, and in gesture. We convey subtleties and express primal needs. Language is both very complex and fundamental to our basic needs as social creatures. We use functional communication to get what we need, ask for help, advocate for ourselves, and express our feelings to one another. When we think about communication, we often think about a conversation using verbal speech. And while many individuals with autism do use verbal speech as their primary means of communication, many use other modes of communication. Remember that social communication is a defining characteristic of autism, which means that many students with autism may not learn to use verbal speech and will require another mode of communication. The Picture Exchange Communication System, or PECS, is a common research-based communication system that uses picture icons to communicate with conversation partners. Other modes include voice output devices, or VOCA, also sometimes called Augmentative and Alternative Communication, or AAC devices, which range from specific high-tech interactive devices that operate on a computer, iPad, or mobile device operating systems, to simpler devices with only one or two buttons that play a recorded word or phrase. Sign language is another mode of communication used with students with autism, most often in conjunction with other modes in a multimodal or total communication system, meaning we teach and support students using not one, but multiple ways to communicate to ensure they get their needs met. Other ways of communicating include eye gaze, gestures, body language, facial expressions, and any other behavior. We've talked about some different forms of communication, but why is something that comes so naturally to many of us so important anyway? Because communication is a foundational skill in every part of school success, both academically and otherwise, as well as having an independent life. As such, having a way to communicate with others is a basic human right, and it's absolutely imperative that all students have an effective means of communicating their wants and needs, thoughts, and choices. Often, students without a means to communicate resort to problem behavior to advocate for their needs. Thus, providing all students with a communication system will reduce interfering behavior in the classroom. Let's watch our first video. In this video, you will notice students playing together with a teacher supervising them. One of the students disrupts the play of one of his peers. While you watch the video, notice how the teacher prompts the peer to communicate that he does not want him to do that.
Let's do it together. We can have a house and we can have a zoo. Okay? If you don't want him to do that, tell him. So please don't break that.
Please don't break that. I'm gonna make a doggy house.
Here, you need to help us to make the
You
doggy
can't
house.
do anything from doing something.
Okay? Help us get blocks.
Okay, for his home.
Yes, for his home. Okay?
What did you see? Notice how the teacher interrupted the frustrated student, modeled the phrase he could use, and gave him an opportunity to use it in the natural environment. These natural opportunities, or teachable moments, are great ways to practice and reinforce skills.
Picture Exchange Communication System, also known as PECS, is a picture-based system where children exchange a physical symbol, such as a picture or an icon, to receive items or actions they want. At Ellison Preschool, 5 of the nonverbal students already use PECS as their communication method. Since there are 2 speech therapists available, programs such as BoardMaker will allow for communication boards to be made for the remainder of the students who do not have a method of communication. PECS can be used effectively in teaching functional communication and help decrease problem behaviors.
More. You are. I want more.
I want whipped cream, please.
Oh no.
There you go.
Yeah. No, it's silly.
Hi, Parker. Do you want water or juice?
Hello.
A juice?
Hello.
All right, we'll get some juice.
Good job, buddy.
Our default is water. Do you want straw?
Am I?
Oh, what color? Blue or orange?
I.
Oh, nice. Nice work, Parker.
There you go, buddy.
It's a big straw.
Benefits of using FCT at Ellison Preschool. It will teach socially appropriate replacement behaviors to all children. The use of appropriate replacement techniques and responses that will be taught to the children at Ellison will not only benefit the students who seem to be exhibiting the problem behaviors, but will also benefit the children who are not consistently throwing tantrums. They will learn what to say when a situation of lack of sharing or a tantrum occurs, and the children can work together using FCT techniques to get through the issue. FCT is evidence-based practice. Working in the field of ABA, almost all the techniques we used are evidence-based, which means that there has been extensive research done to show that it is an effective technique to use in an appropriate situation. FCT is evidence-based and has shown to be a successful technique when dealing with problem behaviors, such as tantrums and sharing issues. FCT is an easy skill to teach to all staff, parents, and children. FCT is a great technique because it can be taught to any person by training an individual in FCT who may benefit from this technique. It doesn't take much time to learn how to appropriately use and teach the technique, thus parents and staff are more eager to learn a technique that not only is easy to learn and teach themselves, but also effective. FCT can be generalized. The main goal of any therapy technique that individuals may learn is to hopefully see the technique be used not only in the therapy place, but in other situations in the real world, such as the child's home and other places they may frequent. FCT is an easy technique to see generalized because parents can use the techniques that the child is learning in school or in therapy and reinforce the behavior at home. Where and when will the training happen? On the Ellison 2-day staff development days, staff and teachers will be required to attend the FCT workshop. This will ensure that all staff and trainers are on the same page when implementing FCT procedures and questions can be asked so there is no confusion. Teachers and staff will receive hands-on training and paper materials by the preschool's BCBA. After training is complete, once a month a meeting will be set after school conducted by the BCBA to modify any techniques, give feedback, and monitor progress. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of functional communication training, we wanted to share this quote expressing the needs our students actually all of us, have to communicate effectively with others. The ability to communicate is one of the most basic human needs. Allowing a student an effective means to express herself supports her human dignity. Every minute of every school day, communication is the key to social, emotional, functional, and academic progress. We are here today to help our students express themselves in a socially acceptable and effective manner, regardless of their vocal abilities. With that, we'll begin our outline of the implementation of the FCT here at Ellison. As FCT is implemented, a few materials will be necessary to assess the effectiveness of the intervention, ensure consistency in its implementation, and to support student learning. These materials include data sheets, reinforcers for appropriate student responding, visual prompts and video models to support the student's use of FCT, a treatment fidelity checklist, and picture exchange communication or PECS binders for students who do not yet have vocal speech. The first step in implementing FCT is to identify the interfering behavior. Staff here at Ellison have already identified students taking toys from one another, fighting over toys, and lack of sharing. An example is, Tommy screams and cries when he sees John with the toy he wants. John gives Tommy the toy so he will stop screaming. Tommy will most likely scream the next time he wants a toy someone else is using. The behavior is serving a function and can act as a form of communication. Our next step is to determine the function of the interfering behavior. In order to accurately identify the function of a behavior, a functional behavior assessment must be completed. Data is collected through interviews with staff working with the students, through record reviews, and direct observation of the students in the environment where the interfering behaviors are most likely to occur. After the data is collected and analyzed, a hypothesis regarding the function of the behavior can be made, and an intervention addressing the function can be created and implemented. Be aware of what happens before the behavior, the consequences or what might be maintaining the behavior, environments where the behavior occurs, people in the environment, and frequency and intensity of the behavior. Intervention should address the function of the behavior and teach a replacement behavior. The replacement behavior should serve the same function as the interfering behavior and should be more effective and even easier for the student to use than the interfering behavior. An example is, saying, signing, using a pet card to ask for a turn requires less response effort than crying, screaming, and hitting other children. It may also result in the desired environmental effect more often than the interfering behavior. Once a replacement behavior has been identified and a teaching method or intervention has been chosen and implemented, data should be collected consistently and frequently to assess the effectiveness of the intervention. This data will inform the continuation of the current intervention or help in making decisions for adjusting teaching methods. This is an example of a data collection sheet for FCT. It identifies the interfering behavior and the desired replacement behavior. Information regarding student use of desired behaviors, as well as antecedent and consequence events in the environment, are closely tracked. Another important set of data to collect is treatment fidelity, or the accurate implementation of the chosen intervention. It is important for all staff members to implement behavioral interventions in a consistent and accurate manner. This ensures that any observed changes in student behavior are due to the intervention itself and not other factors caused by even small variations in the way staff members are implementing the intervention. It's important for teachers and our practitioners to create the teaching environment where problem behaviors occur. This will allow the setting events to occur naturally, and the staff can teach replacement behaviors in that moment. It will increase the likely chance for the desired behavior to occur. For example, if a child begins to tantrum when a toy is taken away, the staff can teach them to use your words, to get desired item back appropriately, or communicate the take turns. Using visual supports will be useful to teach and maintain desired behaviors as the child can see and model the appropriate way to share. Once you have created the teaching environment, prompting will be necessary to ensure that the behavior being learned is correct each time. This is called errorless teaching. Errorless teaching starts with most delays prompts and will allow the child to make the correct response immediately while getting reinforced with praise, tokens, or other identified reinforcers. Once students begin to show the desired behavior independently, staff will systematically fade prompts. It is important to not directly address the undesired behaviors. Instead, you will prompt the correct response.
Sharing toys is a nice thing to do. My friends are sad when I take a toy away from them without asking.
Nice. Can I borrow that purple?
Of course.
Thanks.
If my friends are playing with the toy that I want, I will ask, can I play with it? If they say no, I will ask, can I play with it when you're done, please? Then I will go find something else to do until it's my turn.
Can I use that paddle ball right now?
Not right now.
Okay, can I use it later once you're done then?
Sure.
Okay, I'll go play Legos.
Visual supports are effective in promoting the use of replacement behaviors. Pictures and posters with words or pictures can be placed throughout the learning environment to prompt students in the use of desired behaviors. Visual supports help support appropriate behaviors throughout the day when staff are not able to be directly involved with each individual student. As we finish our discussion about the use of visual supports, it is interesting to note that these are helpful for us as well. Functional communication training begins with recognizing a setting event. For example, playtime for the students and opportunity to use or learn effective communication. The antecedent event, maybe peer playing with a desired toy, sets the stage for a variety of behavioral options. If the student shows the desired behavior, asking for a turn, for example, they're usually rewarded with what they're asking for. However, there's an opportunity for a problem behavior to occur, such as hitting, taking a toy, or crying. This behavior occurs because, in the past, it has gotten the student access to the toy. In this case, we make sure the toy is not accessed until we prompt the alternate behavior, asking for a turn, and the student is then given access to the toy. Final tips. When first implementing FCT, reinforce the target behavior every time it occurs. Once the target behavior seems to be successfully mastered, the schedule of reinforcement can be decreased. Make sure all individuals implementing FCT understand exactly what is expected on them. Encourage staff or teachers to ask questions if they have challenges or need clarification on any part of FCT. Include parents in progress with helpful tips for at-home FCT with weekly or bi-weekly or monthly handouts. This can assist in generalization of skills. Thank you all for attending today's in-service. We're excited to continue working with all of you at Ellison Preschool as we all help create a cooperative learning and social environment for the students.